Peace and love, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and we're here every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to bring you encouragement, to bring you hope, to bring insights and tips and tools that you can use for the advancement and the betterment of your life. We do that through the words that are shared, as well as through methodology of healing that brings about actual healing on every aspect of a person's beingness: physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and really every aspect of a person's life. And we do that through a methodology called Transcending the Matrix, which is a holistic based approach to healing that I've been blessed to utilize and teach for going on the last 22 years or so. And so we welcome you into this space. From my heart to yours, I'm sending a bunch of love in your direction, trusting that it reaches you in the way that you need it to. And we're going to kind of get right into it today. A couple weeks ago, we dealt with 10 tips to be spiritually free. 10 tips to be spiritually free. I got a little something in my eye just now somehow. Anyway, and isn't that kind of what it is that we're all endeavoring to do? Endeavoring to be spiritually free. There are whole religions that are based on getting us spiritually free. In some religions, it's referred to as liberation. In some, it's referred to as enlightenment. In some, it's referred to as salvation, or at least Christianity, it's referred to as salvation. But it's really all getting to the same thing: becoming free of all of the fear-based things that are tied to the matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation, the box that we've been programmed into and that we are endeavoring to get out of. Okay. And so 2 weeks ago, we addressed 10 tips to be spiritually free. And I let you know then that we'd be following up with another 10 tips because I had additional tips then. And we're going to have to kind of go through this quickly. I'll be sharing each one of these tips one at a time. By the way, if you haven't seen the other one, I definitely want to encourage you to go back and check out the one from, what was the date from that one? Was it the 13th? I think today's the 27th. So I think it would have been the 13th from Sunday, July 13th, 2025. And so we're going to kind of follow a similar format today as to what we followed a couple weeks ago. And what that format is going to be is I'm going to do the prayer. We're going to do healing on each one of these 10 things. We're going to mention each one of these 10 things one at a time. And with each one, I'll offer a little bit of healing support to help make it easier to navigate each one of these 10 things. Okay. It's not going to be a long drawn out time on any one of these things, as each one of these things could really use a fair amount of attention within themselves. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And so I'm going to start with a prayer. Mother, Father, everything, God, source of all good, all life, all love. I know you to be a healer and that there's nothing beyond your healing power. You're a liberator and you desire for us to be completely spiritually free. And through the union that we share through your Holy Spirit and the power of your pure love, I demonstrate you as a healer on the behalf of all of those who choose to tap into this healing. And if that's you, then I invite you to state your name at this time, whether out loud or silent. For the purpose of neutralizing the root cause of all ways and manifestations in which we might be spiritually bound. hemmed up from being the fullness of who it is that we really are, restricted and limited in our expression of the divine light that is us at our core. Transmuting those things, as well as all cumulative effects from the point of the causal root and the entire energy field of every strand of DNA and every cell of the body of each person who chooses to align themselves with this healing. And transmuting that into and replacing it with a sense of divine spiritual freedom, of being truly set free and dwelling in the state of joyfulness and bliss and divine well-being and limitless empowerment that comes with being completely free to be who it is we were divinely designed to be, and to actually dwell joyfully in the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the first of these 10 more tips to be spiritually free. The first one that we're going to focus on for today is study the things of God with a completely open mind. Study the things of God with a completely open mind. There is so much that, greetings, Cass. Good to have you in the space today, sis. There's so much that we don't know. There's so much that we have no clue about. And I can tell you in my own journey, my gosh, I've come across a lot of information over the last several decades, and some of it was stuff that resonated, some of it was stuff that didn't, some of it were things that caused me to really wrestle deep down inside. There's a story in the Bible about Jacob wrestling with an angel through the night and having his hip knocked out of the socket in the process of that wrestling. And he told that angel he wasn't going to let go until he blessed him. And what that really is getting with, what it is that Jacob was really wrestling with. Jacob means supplanter. He tricked his brother, his older brother, out of his birthright. And what it was that he was really wrestling with is it was really a wrestling, a battle between his lower nature and his higher nature. Okay. And he wasn't going to give up until he got to where it was that he wanted to be. And he ended up having his name changed from Jacob, which means supplanter or trickster in a way, to Israel, which means the one who has seen God or one who understands God, right? And so this is the story of all of us in a way, in terms of being willing to really go deep in terms of study and having our minds potentially blown, right? Like Neo in the Matrix, if you will, exposed to things that we wouldn't have considered before. And so the first thing I'm putting in these 10 more things is to study the things of God with a completely open mind. Some of the things I study is A Course in Miracles, the Bible, other things you may find enriching for your own journey. But endeavor to study these things as if you don't already have all the answers. Study in a way that can allow you to have things introduced into your awareness that may transcend everything that you've previously believed. And I want to kind of hold off on that because that gets into another one. But there are going to be some of these that will surprise you. So please make sure to check out all 10 of these things. So I'm going to do a little healing support to clear up some blockages to help make it easier for us to study the things of God with a completely open mind. And the first thing that I want to address is the know-it-all aspect within us, feeling like we have all the answers. We're using like 5 to 10% of our brain capacity, and somehow we think we have all the answers, right? One of the great philosophers in history, you know, uh, is best known for his statement that he didn't know anything. And if he was any wiser than anyone, it was only with respect to the fact that he recognized that he didn't really know anything, whereas most people think that they know it all, right? Hurley Conscious King, greetings and good to have you in the space today. Okay. All righty. And so I want to actually resist, tone down and delete the resistance to learning something new. Okay. So I want to actually increase the neuroplasticity in our brain. Neuroplasticity essentially deals with the brain's ability to learn. Okay. And open up new neural pathways within the brain. Okay. And create a sense of fluidity in our learning so we can flow in the process of learning. All right. And I want to address a fear of the unknown. So we're going to purify that fear of the unknown and transmute that into a sense of divine enthusiasm for having a whole new world open to you. Oh my goodness. The more sincere and the more open-mindedly, if I can make a word up, I approached my studies, all kinds of new things came to me that end up proving profoundly empowering. They gave me some insight that I'd never had before, and put me in a position to be able to speak on some things with a certain level of authority. Because I wasn't just relying on what other people thought about what other people wrote. I ended up actually studying, and in the context of studying materials, scriptures, and so forth, I ended up actually going deeply within myself as well, and ultimately studying some things within me that actually ended up helping to unlock some things. Okay. All right. Again, we can't spend too much time on any one of these particular things. So our second tip is be willing to accept that and this goes hand in hand with the first one. Be willing to accept that everything you have ever known or believed, has fallen short of reality. Now, this is not for the faint at heart, but this is for those who truly want to be spiritually free. Okay. I was at a point in my life where I lifted a prayer and I said, God, I want to know your truth, not man's truth. I want to know your truth. And I heard a response back that said, how badly do you want it? And I said, I really want it. I really want to know your truth. And then another question came that really threw me for a loop. And that question was, are you willing to risk hell to truly have heaven? And now that that shook me a little bit. But ultimately my answer was yes, I really want your truth. I really want to give up what it is that I know or what it is that I think that I know to really be tapped into your truth, your transcendent truth that is above that of human beings' typical understanding, right? All right. And so to be able to accept that everything that you've ever known or believed has fallen short of reality, that takes a certain degree of courage. So let's strengthen us all to tap into previously unrecognized storehouses of courage within yourself. Okay. And to be able to draw on the strength of those who actually got to a point of being spiritually free themselves. By the way, Just because a person has been preaching for a long time doesn't mean that they're spiritually free. Just because a person is called guru by certain people doesn't mean that they're spiritually free. Just because a person has written a lot of books doesn't necessarily mean that they're spiritually free. Okay. That doesn't mean that they're not, but it doesn't mean that they are. And so if you want to be at a point where you are truly spiritually free, then it means that you may need to get to the point where any and everything that you've previously believed, where you're open to anything and everything that you've previously believed being challenged. And that was a point that I had to come to. And it can be scary. So let's adjust this let's address the fear of change and transmute that fear of change into 100% infinite trust in God, that God has got you. Okay. Most of the things that people talk about are wrong, point blank, period. And I'm not going to mince my words in saying that. Most of the things, there's so many things, that people generally hold as true. And there have been things that to me have seemed like the answer is like right there. How are people missing this? But because we tend to walk in lockstep with everybody else, what's generally held as conventionally true. Okay. But to be able to be willing to accept that everything that you've ever known or ever believes falls short of reality, then you open yourself up to actually have a deeper, truer version of reality exposed to you and presented to you. I've talked with a lot of people who've had near-death experiences. They got it, that the things in this world aren't really the real thing. Colors are brighter. The love is deeper, purer, and truer. There's an expansiveness. Okay, I'm gonna really do my best to resist doing a lot of preaching and talking, because I really do want to offer healing support to help make each of these 10 things, or each of these 10 more things, a little bit easier for all of us to be able to navigate. Okay. All right. So in terms of being willing to accept that everything that you've ever known or believed has fallen short of reality, want to be able to strengthen us for truly tapping into the mind of God with a childlike innocence and openness to the possibility that there is something totally new that can be revealed to you. I want to strengthen all of us for that. All right. I want to also look at the fear of being different. Let's address the fear of being different. All right. I want to address that from, the standpoint of even your inner child. Okay. Where we have innate needs to be authentic, and we have deep needs for connection. And as a young child, as a baby and as a young child, we're completely dependent on somebody else for our own survival. And so we end up learning ways to kind of contort ourselves to fit in with other people or not displease people, because we feel that our survival is dependent on it. And that's not necessarily something that we learn later in life. We learn that very early on in life, and that it frequently can stick with us. So let's actually release those shackles. Okay. And strengthen us to be free, to be truly ourselves, and strengthen our ability to be and feel a sense of divine connection, even if our awareness is different than that of most of the people that we know or encounter. Okay. All right. So let's move on to number 3. This is something that was presented to me quite a while ago, was the awareness that anything and everything that anyone does or intends towards me returns to them double. And so I want to mention that this is something I found in my own journey to be freeing, to be liberating. One of the things that happens is, I can tell you that in my own life journey, I actually have come to a point where I have compassion towards people who endeavor to do me wrong. And really, I don't really too much have people trying to do me wrong anymore, because I don't have that much of a charge for that the way that I used to at previous points in my life. So I'm just not really drawing that into my life so much anymore at this juncture. But there was a time where that was not the case in my lived experience. And during that time, I got the understanding that everybody, and I would see it happening, I would see it very rapidly happening, that everything intended, whether bad or good to me, will return double for other people based on their actions or intentions towards me. And so what that does, when you assume that to be the case, what that does is it actually frees you up from trying to seek revenge and seek vengeance upon the people who have caused you harm, or that you hold responsible, who you hold responsible for your pain. Okay, on some level. All right. Okay, so let's look at the need to be in control. Let's look at the need to, let's look at actually any level of pleasure that we might get from seeing others suffer. All right. Purify that through the power of pure love. And transmute that pleasure into compassion. Okay. There was another one that just came to me that I want to add to the 10 more actually. I'll save that for another time. All right. So let's actually strengthen us to be able to trust karma to work its way out in a situation without you having to create more negative karma for yourself by trying to do bad to somebody who did bad to you. Okay. All right. And so in that sense, want to actually strengthen us to be able to, want to actually strengthen us to be able to take our hands off of situations that aren't really situations that we actually need to tend to. Okay. All right. And so we don't need to seek vengeance or anything like that upon other people. Cass says, that's good to know. Healing has led me to not even think about how those that harmed me will pay for their actions. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's certainly my experience as well. And I've genuinely developed compassion for those who do me wrong, because come to realize that there's a certain level of brokenness in them that's causing them to behave that way. And then there's more that's likely going to be visited upon them for the level of consciousness that they're operating in, or level of lack of consciousness, I could say, that they're operating in. And so let's look at number 4. Assume that everything you do, this is like the reverse of the last one. Assume that everything you do or intend towards anyone else returns double to you. Okay. Now you try this on, this will keep your heart pure. It'll keep your heart pure. It'll keep your intentions pure, because you'll think twice before you do or even intend wrong towards others. You'll find that you are more diligent and more disciplined in your thoughts regarding other people. Because if you're thinking the negative thing regarding another person, it's still sending bad energy in their direction, which is also simultaneously sending bad energy in your direction. But if you can keep your heart pure, if you can make this assumption, it will help to keep your heart pure. Okay. I wear this bracelet just about every day, reminding me to keep my heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. So I'm always endeavoring to keep my heart pure. Okay. And so I want to strengthen us to be able to have true intimacy. Okay. When I say have true intimacy, what I mean, what intimacy really speaks to is your ability to see yourself in another, and your ability to see another in yourself. Okay. You into me see. You're seeing yourself in that other person and them in you. Okay. And when you get to the point of recognizing that maybe not in the exact same way, everybody is reflecting an aspect of you, and everything that you see about anyone else is reflecting an aspect of you, it's easier to actually have a little bit more compassion. I'm not going to tell you I like everybody. I do love everybody, genuinely. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I like everybody's personality. Personality or persona. The root word of personality is persona. A persona is a mask. I don't particularly enjoy everybody's mask. I'm not going to start dropping names of people's masks who I don't particularly enjoy. However, I have come to a point where I really have to be diligent about what it is that I am thinking about other people. There have been so many times I've gotten a little spiritual tap on my shoulder of how I was judging somebody else, or how I wasn't being spiritually generous towards someone else. So I want to strengthen us to be able to release our attachment to judgmentalism, and our ability to see everyone else as equal to ourselves. Excuse me. It's easy to do ill by someone else when you see them as less than yourself. It's easy to do harm to other people when you see them as less than yourself, when you see them as less humane than you, when you see them as having less value than you, when you see them as less worthy than you. It's easier to do harm to other people and to play a psychological game with yourself to make it okay with yourself. On a soul level, it's never okay with you. On the level of personality, you can rationalize some things to on some level pretend to be okay with it, which is really just actually putting you deeper down in the mire, locking you into a greater degree of fear-based thinking, and all of the ramifications that come with it. All right. And so I want to strengthen us to be able to something else came up. Want to deal with ancestral trauma. There are things that exist on the ancestral level that on some level make us want to get even with other people, or do harm to other people, or want to see bad happen to other people. I know there's a lot of that going on in the country that I live in right now. Okay, we want to transmute that and strengthen for the purification of our hearts. All right. Okay, now let's move on to, excuse me, tip number 5. Pray affirmatively, leaving the outcome and the how to God. Okay, what am I getting at in saying this? The greatest prayer that we can really pray is thank you, assuming that it's already a done deal. Where did I get this copper bracelet? I got this copper bracelet actually on Amazon a few years ago, Cass. And it has a scripture, Proverbs 4:23 on it. And it has magnets on the inside of it. But I got it on Amazon. You can do an Amazon search and can find a variety of copper bracelets there. Pray affirmatively, leaving the outcome to God and leaving the how to God. That's a thing that gets in our way. So when I say pray affirmatively, lift the prayer as an already done deal, not something that you're hoping to happen, but as something that you acknowledge as a completed work. In Transcending the Matrix, we start off the treatment with a prayer, and we don't ask for it to happen. We don't ask for it to happen. We're bearing witness to the person's wholeness and affirming that it is already done, that it is already done. And so this is what it is to really, truly have faith in God, because everybody has the same amount of faith. Some people just choose to put it in what they fear, whereas others choose to put it into the source of the source of where all blessings come from, right? And so pray affirmatively from a standpoint of appreciation for a completed work, yet at the same time being non-attached to it unfolding any particular way. Okay, so there may be some things that you might think that you want, and you might not actually end up wanting that. I know there have been some things that I thought that I wanted until I got them, and then it's like, okay, you can take it back. I'm not feeling this, right? I'm sure that you all have made a purchase at some point in time in your life where you got it and you're like, no, I'm not really feeling this. Whether it's an article of clothing or something else, maybe something to eat. You got it. You thought it looked good at first, but you bit into it or you put it on or whatever the case might have been, and you weren't feeling it. There probably have been some prayers that have unfolded in a similar way for you. And so if you're able to be loose with it in terms of how it unfolds, whatever the outcome is and how it unfolds, because guess what? There's some things that you wouldn't have imagined in terms of possibilities for how the thing can unfold. And you don't have to know the how. The how isn't really your business. Leave that to God. The more you're attached to the outcome and the more you're needing to have your hand on it, trying to control. As somebody who's, experienced hurricanes, stuff like that, there's certain life experiences that can remind you that you're not really in control of anything. And at the end of the day, we're really not in control, though we might have, some control freak tendencies. So and the reason that we feel a need to control things is because there's a level of fear. So let's address the fear of being taken advantage of. Let's address the fear of pain, the fear of being hurt, the fear of things not unfolding, the fear of things unfolding in a way that we won't be happy with. So let's delete that from the point of the root cause and transmute that into faith that God is working everything out in the way that it needs to for your highest and best good. Now, to address that, let's address the part of us that thinks that we're smarter than God and that we know what's good for us better than God does. Okay, so we want to delete that, transmute that through the power of pure love, and transmute it into a state of divine allowing. Big break there. But transmute that into a state of divine allowing, so that we're not having resistance, but allowing, being open in a way that allows that divine flow to unfold in our lives. Okay. All right, now let's move on to tip number 6. Meditate and listen for the voice of God to speak to you. Prayer is really a twofold thing. It's a conversation. It's a conversation with God. If you're the only one talking, or if your focus is only on speaking, that's not a conversation, that's a monologue. Okay. But if one of the things that can really help us to be spiritually free is to, and this is kind of dealing with that letting go of the control thing, entering into a state where we're open and receptive to hear the voice of God speaking to us. I told you of a situation before where it was very clear to me what it was that God was saying in that moment. I can't say it was something that I anticipated or even necessarily liked in the moment how it came. But to be able to quiet your mind to a degree, to listen to the voice of God speaking to you, and then honor what it says. But as much as possible, listen with your ego not attached. Okay. So let's address that. So let's first of all strengthen us to be able to drown out voices that are not of God. And it doesn't matter who it's from for what's said to be the voice of God or to not be the voice of God. I know a lady who was going through a difficult time in her life, and she had a dream where Jesus came and spoke to her and comforted her, and she felt so much peace as a result of that. And then she went and talked to the pastor at the church and told the pastor about it. And the pastor said, that wasn't Jesus, that was the devil. My personal opinion is that the devil didn't show up and speak until the pastor opened his mouth in that particular situation. Now, I'm not saying that all pastors are bad, but I don't believe that particular pastor was speaking on the behalf of God in that particular moment. Okay. I do believe that as she experienced genuine comfort in her dream state, that God was presenting to her in a way that she could receive it in that moment to bring greater peace into her life. All right. And so let's look at our subconscious desire to dominate a conversation. Okay. Tone that aspect of our ego down that wants to dominate the conversation and open our ears up to an openness, willingness, and enthusiasm to hear, but also to hear with a discerning ear, to be able to discern what the voice of God is from what other lesser voices might be. Okay. All right, and we'll move on to number 7. This is an interesting. Find some stuff that you can deeply enjoy. Find some things that you can really, truly, deeply enjoy. But here's the rub. Things other than that which brings you physical pleasure. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with physical pleasure, but you are a non-physical being interacting in some physical ways. But what ends up happening sometimes is that there are those who live this life in a way where they didn't come to find any pleasure or happiness in anything other than physical things. And then when you lay the body down, then they're disconnected and lost, not ready to go on over to the other side, get stuck in the astral realm, on the earth plane, but in the astral realm, and then will maybe attach themselves to somebody else's body to be able to experience the sex or the food or whatever it is. And then, as a matter of fact, a lot of the things that people experience as addictions are really essentially a parasitic spirit that's attached itself to you, that is seeking to find physical pleasure through your body because they no longer have a body to experience that physical pleasure through. All right. I know that may seem a little far-fetched, but I've been doing this work for a long time. You don't have to believe me, by the way. What I will say, though, is if you want to be spiritually free, then it is necessary for you to be able to find some things that you can truly enjoy that are of a non-physical nature. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy physical things. I enjoy physical things, and I enjoy non-physical things. Okay, so let's strengthen us to be able to find joy in non-physical things. Let's strengthen us to weaken our sometimes when we're in a certain place where we're caught up so much in the physical world and ignore the spiritual world, we get into a state of congruence for things to happen, like get in, move into realms of addiction. Okay. All right. So let's strengthen us to be able to actually, let's kind of transmute our proclivity towards physical only to have a proclivity towards the spiritual, and include the physical in a spiritual context. Okay. And be able to ultimately keep the main thing the main thing. Okay. And I'm not saying run away from all physical pleasure. I'm not saying, self-mutilation or anything like that is spiritually appropriate. That's coming from a different level of being bound, right? Maybe from guilt and shame and other things that have been taken into one's belief system. Okay. All right. So let's look at being able to connect with people who are able to find joy in things that stimulate them non-physically as well. All right. Maybe that speak to the intellect, that speak to the soul. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to tip number 8, which is seek to see the innate innocence in everyone. I even capitalize that there because that's so significant. Seek to see the innate innocence in everyone, including yourself, and truly bless everyone in your heart. Okay. Now, this is some somewhat next level stuff, right? We think that we're in pain. Of Course in Miracles talks about this. We think that we're in pain because of what other people have done to us. The deep, deep, deep pain that we feel on a soul level is our judgment towards other people, towards ourselves as well, but largely our judgment towards other people. Because on a soul level, we know that nothing should take us off our square. Nothing should really take us off of our center from being who it is that we truly are as beings and expressions of pure love and divine light. Okay. And then when we betray the truest aspects of ourselves that's deeply painful. And then what happens is then we project that pain that we feel as a function of betraying our true divine nature onto the other person or onto another person. Okay. And we hold them responsible for our pain. We have judgments about other people. We see them as something other than innocent, which deteriorates the aura. It weakens us spiritually. It keeps us from being able to experience divine peace. Okay. But to be able to see the innate innocence in yourself, this is why the scripture says that God is not a respecter of persons. We consider some people preferential over other people, you know, but in the heart and the mind of God, God sees the innate innocence in all of us. That doesn't mean that we're not held accountable, but God sees the innate innocence in all of us. And to the degree that we are able to see the innate innocence in all of us, ourselves and everyone else, that does something tremendously beneficial for our spiritual beingness and helping to set us free. Okay. All right. And so now, why would we choose to not see someone else as innocence? Because we find some benefit, because we might have an attachment to our anger. We might have an attachment to our victim. Ooh, that was one. Have an attachment to our victim story. So let's weaken the hold of that attachment to our victim story and actually realign us to our victory story. Okay. By the way, victory isn't something that you experience over someone else. It's something that you experience over your own lower nature. Okay. All right. So let's also, boy, the time is just flying. And we still have 2 more to do after this one. Okay. So in terms of another thing that keeps us from having resistance towards seeing the innocence in everyone, including ourselves, I'm going to focus this time on what creates resistance for us seeing the innocence within ourselves is believing the bad things that other people told us about us. Okay. So we want to delete all of that from the point of the root cause, transmute it into and replace it with a sense of divine compassion and forgiveness of the version of ourselves that we were when we were operating from a lower level of consciousness, because that's all that it is. Okay. And that's something that requires help, not judgment or condemnation. Okay. Brokenness isn't something that needs to be further broken. Brokenness is something that needs to be healed and made whole. Okay. All right. Now, this is also tied into why we addressed some of those other things earlier, like having the open mind, consider the possibility that everything that we've ever known or believed falls short of reality. You know, this matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation or limitation, the nature of the 3D is twofold. We see things as separate from us, and we see us as being limited. Okay. And so both of those things place us in a state of fear. Okay. It places us in an emotional state of fear, which raises stress hormones like cortisol. Okay. It has our amygdala in our brain running wild. Okay. And it doesn't serve our highest and best good when that's happening. Okay. And so let's actually address within us right now um, that that fear, which is false evidence appearing real. It appears real, but it's not really real. There's an abundance, there's a proliferation of evidence, but the evidence is false. It's false evidence that just appears real. Okay. And so let's strengthen us all to be able to see beyond the false evidence and to be able to see the reallys, to be able to see the truth, the divine truth. Okay. And to be able to accept that divine truth that at its core is that the Son of God, the daughter of God is always innocent. And there isn't a human being on the face of the earth that wasn't created by God. Okay. All right. One other thing I want to address with this is the belief system that there are better and worser people. Okay. Worser isn't really a word, but and to actually be able to see each and every one of us as an innocent baby from the standpoint of an innocent newborn baby, and have compassion on that person. All right, we got to move on to the next one. Number 9. This is a skill that sometimes needs to be developed. And that's turn down invitations to guilt trips and pity parties. And really, while those won't necessarily fully encompass the next thing that I'm going to speak to, not number 10, but kind of connected with this, is don't allow yourself to be manipulated by other people. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated by other people. And a way that people will frequently do that is by trying to make you feel guilty, or, inviting you to a pity party, and they're feeling bad, so they want you to feel bad along with them. You've heard the saying, misery loves company. Well, joy loves company too. Now, that's not the same thing as not having compassion for people. Have compassion for people, just don't let folks manipulate you. And to be able to have the courage to turn down guilt trips and pity parties. All right. I didn't put this as a tip, but I'm going to kind of add it in conjunction with this, is vigilantly discontinue extending to others invitations to guilt trips and pity parties. Okay, so these two kind of go hand in hand, kind of two sides of the same coin. All right, so what helps us to accept invitations to guilt trips? The fact that we're already feeling guilty. All right, so let's get back to that return to innocence. Return to our true self. And allow us to be able to have compassion while also establishing healthy boundaries. And to be able to hold people in the light without necessarily going on down a road of negativity along with them. Okay. All right. Okay. It's 1:56. I'm going to need to move on to number 10, our last one for this week. Take full responsibility for everything in your life. When you take full responsibility for everything in your life, you're blaming no one, including yourself. Taking responsibility for everything in your life isn't the same thing as blaming yourself for where you are. Taking responsibility is, okay, where do I go from here? All right. And so why do we resist taking responsibility? Sometimes because we want to be spiritually lazy. All right, so let's address the spiritual laziness, transmute and purify that through the power of pure love, and strengthen us to be able to um, align with the sense of empowerment that comes with taking responsibility. Another thing, sometimes we think that taking responsibility is just too much work. All right. So we're going to purify that through the power of pure love, transmute that, clear that through the light of the Holy Spirit. All right. Now, we think it's too much work because we associate work with something that we don't want to do. So we want to purify that through the power of pure love. And to be able to actually find satisfaction in doing what I'll call in this context, the inner work. To find satisfaction in doing the inner work, and even a sense of enthusiasm about doing the inner work. Okay. Now, do you know how empowering it can be to take full responsibility for everything in your life? Yeah, maybe somebody did something to you. Maybe you ended up having a health crisis. Maybe you end up losing your job. You know, maybe things didn't work out with a business opportunity. You know, maybe this or that is going on in terms of your family or whatever the case might be. To be able to take full responsibility for everything in your life. You don't have the power to change anything that you don't take responsibility for. Let me put it that way. All right. So let's strengthen us to be able to have a real true sense of empowerment for creating change in our own lives. And to actually feel enlivened as a result of that. Okay. All right. Yeah, we've been addressing 10 things, 10 more tips to be spiritually free. And I thank you for, even though we just touched briefly on these 10 things, I thank you for introducing these things into our awareness and for the bit of healing that happened today to be able to offer support in these 10 areas. May we continue to move forward in an empowered, joyful way as we continue to endeavor to enter into the sustainable state, enter into and dwell in the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. Thank you, God, for these and all other blessings in Hashem Yeshua HaMashiach, Hashem and Amen. All right, beloveds, it's been good being here with you today. Glad you enjoyed the session today, Cass, and everyone else. Much love to everyone who's been here with us today. Again, we were dealing with 10 more tips to be spiritually free. If you missed the first 10 that we shared a couple weeks ago, please make sure that you go back and check that out. And if there are any of these 10 tips from this week or the 10 previous tips from a couple weeks ago that you feel like is something that you would like to spend a little bit more time on, that you'd like me to give a little bit more attention to, maybe focus some more healing on, definitely I want to encourage you to comment about that. If you're on Facebook, I'll see the comment. If you're on YouTube, you may need to comment after the live stream because when it's live, I don't see those comments after the stream is over. So you may want to do a playback, even if you don't play the whole thing, do a playback and post your comment then, if it's any one of the 10 tips that you would like some additional energy and attention given to. All right. If you are not already subscribed to the Matrix Healing channel, I certainly encourage you to do so. It's Matrix Healing, one word. Or if you have any questions or comments or a particular thing that you want me to focus on a little bit more, feel free to drop me a message on Facebook or Instagram at Royce Fletcher Thomas. Anyway, thank you, Curly Conscious King. May you have a successful week as well. May we all have a successful, excellent, and purpose-filled week and life. Yeah. Yeah, may each and every one of us be able to do that. Again, until we meet again, I bid you do with peace and love. Catch you next time.